Ah shizzle, here we go again. Hello and welcome to the Reviews Brothers. Did you know that according to Google, there are more than 4,000 games released for the PlayStation 2? That's just silly, but it will of course mean that many of the games will have passed a lot of us by. That's why I have taken on the mammoth task of compiling a full A to Z of hidden gems for the system. Games that aren't necessarily the best ones ever made, but still ones that are fun to play and worth trying out. We'll be looking at 10 games per letter, and with that many games to go through, I'm really going to need your help digging out games that don't get talked about very often, so please make sure to put all your suggestions in the comments below. And don't forget to check out my A to Z of PlayStation 1 hidden gems as well. Now, how about I shut up, you press that subscribe button, and we take a look at some games. We're going to start with a movie tie-in, which might surprise you. This is Aeon Flux, a video game based on a movie, based on an anime, based on a manga, based on... no, I think that's about it. But actually I don't think it's technically anime, as it originated in Germany. Who cares? We're talking about the video game. The story here is set in the far future, where most of humanity has been wiped out, so probably about 2028. And all that's really left is a massive walled city that managed to keep out the virus that caused all the naughtiness. Scientists have found a cure, but there's plenty of bastards that either want to steal it, destroy it, or use it for their own gain, one of which is a government leader. Shock. You play as Aeon Flux, who is an assassin, badass, sexy lady person, and you have to infiltrate various labs, etc. in order to assassinate the Git. The levels take you around quite a few places, from inside laboratories to city rooftops, battlegrounds and more, and getting around them is all really good thanks to some sweet acrobatics you can do. Aeon has a pretty large moveset, being able to run, jump, climb and flip over just about everything you see. And the game really is built around this. You've got a grappling hook that you can use to get around the higher areas, and you'll need to use combinations of wall running and grappling to get around. You get a few objectives on each level, which can be as simple as beating up people, or other times you need to place explosives, steal things or information, or rescue people. There's plenty of enemies here for you to deal with as well. These come in your usual varieties, with standard thugs, some with guns, some without. There's people with shields, and later on you'll meet mutants and monsters that you'll need to take down, as well as tanks and helicopters. Thankfully, the combat here is pretty fun actually. It's mostly hand to hand, and you have a good few combos and throws you can do by hammering the various buttons. Each enemy has a life meter, and what's cool is that when it gets to a certain point, you have a choice of finishes that you can do, and depending on which one you choose, you either get back health, ammo, or fill up your special bar. This makes the fights quite tactical, as you really need to decide what you need at the end of it. You do also get a few guns, but these aren't always the best to use. They can feel quite weak, but are of course useful against flying enemies and gun turrets, etc. As you explore the levels, you'll also find these strange ball things that you can get into to roll around, like a sort of cross between Metroid and Monkey Ball. These are really prominent in some levels and let you do some cool boosts and attacks into enemies. The game does a pretty good job of making you feel like an agile infiltrator with your cool moveset, and you're often required to do some tricky platforming to get around the levels. Sometimes I did find it hard to know where I needed to go, and I would sometimes get lost, but it was never for too long. Graphically, it looks decent enough. The likeness of Charlize Theron is good, and there's some really impressive animation here. What's also good is that it's not all greys and browns, and there's a fair bit of colour in some of the levels with some cool looking architecture, which I'm assuming is out of the movies or comics. I haven't seen or read any, so I don't really know. Thankfully, the controls are decent too. They are very responsive, and although there were times where I wouldn't grab the thing I was trying to and fall to my death, for the most part they did the job. The camera can be a pain in the ass though, and you do have some control over it most of the time, but there's points in the levels where it tries to do it for you and often doesn't let you quite see what you need to do. It is always manageable though. I was genuinely really surprised at the quality of this game. I'm about halfway through it at the moment and would happily carry on to the end. Definitely one to check out. Airborne Ranger is one I'd never heard of, so was dubious going in, but you know what? Well, of course you do, it's in this video. This is a third-person action game set during World War II. You play as a paratrooper whose plane is shot down, and you've got to fight your way to safety over 7 levels. Each level sees you in a different part of the French town of Normandy, and you'll be fighting through sewers, towns, houses, farms, and more. You start out with just a knife and a pistol, and depending on the level, you have the option to take it stealthily, trying to not attract too much attention, or you can just go in guns blazing, looking for cover to hide behind as you shoot Nazis in the face. You do have objectives in the levels, and what I really like about these is that they sort of appear organically as you're a lone soldier and have no annoying radio buddy. For example, you'll come across some anti-aircraft guns, and then your character gives a voiceover about how he should probably destroy them so his friends don't get shot down. Or later you'll spot some vehicles and then realise you can use them to escape, etc., and this will update your objectives. It sounds kind of simple, and it is, but it is just a really nice change from having some all-seeing, all-hearing person in your ear telling you this stuff. Instead, you hear your character's motivations and reasoning behind the objectives, and it actually made me quite like it. As you play, you'll find a variety of weapons, from pistols and rifles to machine guns. These are all easy to use, and you'll also spend a lot of time just clubbing enemies with the butt of the gun so as not to alert their friends. Though it's never too much of an issue if you do, as the enemy AI really isn't very good. Enemies will just sort of stand still and shoot at you, often giving you plenty of time to aim for their heads, but when there's 4 or more, then you do have to be careful. The levels are quite linear, and you can really tell this is a budget game, but I actually think that plays to the game's favour, as you never really expect too much from it, and it never outstays its welcome. You tend to follow a single path until you find your objective, and then you might need to explore a bit more to find an item or a key to use, and then you're all set. The graphics are actually quite good. Again, it still looks like a budget game, but I don't think it looks bad at all. The animation is smooth, and there's a good variety in the locations. The controls here are responsive, though it is from that time when they hadn't quite figured out what buttons should be where, so aiming and shooting can be a little clunky to start with, but it doesn't take long to get used to it. The only real issue is the dumb enemy AI, but as I said before, it kind of actually helped me with enjoying the game, as it made dealing with most of them much more manageable. Overall though, this is a really fun budget title. You'll be able to play through it in just a couple of hours, maybe even one sitting if you've got a free evening, but really you'll probably have fun time going through it, even if some of the laughs will be at the game's expense. Fighting game time now with All-Star Fighters. This is a one-on-one 3D fighting game featuring all your favourite characters from the D3 Simple series of games. And no, I don't really know them either. Well, actually that's not quite true. This series includes Earth Defense Force, which I love, and I still buy the games for to this day, as well as the Wanchunbara series, which I know is all about bikini-wearing zombie killers. Excellent. So yeah, it's a one-on-one fighter. You choose from the wacky selection of characters, from pumpkin-headed men to women not wearing a lot, and then you read a flimsy story, which in its defence is not meant to be taken seriously at all, and then you have a ruck. Each character has his or her own moveset, a lot of which are based around the games that they have come from, and of course there's a few special moves and even super moves you can do. These are all done using Street Fighter style inputs, and for the most part they work well enough, but I did have some trouble pulling off the super moves and never really knew what I did differently when they did work. The fights themselves are quite fast paced, but I did find that your attacks aren't really all that powerful, so they can feel like they go on for quite some time, but discovering new moves and combos was pretty fun. You've got 4 attack buttons, weak, medium and strong punches and kicks, which I know doesn't add up, but you just have to trust me. For specials, it doesn't really matter which buttons you press, it just depends on the strength of the move, and sometimes adds an extra hit in there too. I found that the opponents were never too difficult, they do tend to block a hell of a lot, and you have to be quite aggressive. A few of them took me a few tries to beat, but when I got used to their style, I didn't have too much trouble. There is a boss at the end as well, but it's just a reskin of the big-boobed woman that you can play as anyway, which is a shame. It just says that she's been brainwashed. She does move a little faster, but just seems to have the same moveset. As such, there's no real secret characters to unlock, and that's never good. For me, fighting games should always have things to unlock. There are a few backgrounds in the game, but I don't think every character has their own one, which is also a shame, especially as there are not that many characters. It does look surprisingly good though, with some decent character models, and the backgrounds that are there are great, with a fair bit going on most of the time. The character animations can be a bit stiff, and the collision detection is questionable at times, with you often really needing to be close to your opponent to hit them. But this is still a fun fighting game. It's by no means the best one out there, in fact it's not even the best one in this video, but it's got a wacky cast of characters and is one that you probably haven't played. It's not all about Tekken, you know. This one's fun, try it out. Here is Alter Echo, a 3D platform action game set in a world where people use a thing called plasts to make anything they like, from structures to creatures, you'll never believe it, weapons. An evil git named Parvo has found a new type of plast called Echoplast on a distant planet, which is way more powerful than the stuff the rest of us puny humans have, and wouldn't you know it, he's decided to use it to take over the world. You play as Nevin, another Plast user who gets tangled up in the whole affair, and it turns out that the Echo Plast is actually its own sentient being and decides to help Nevin take down Parvo. Stupid names. To do this, you're given a suit made of Echoplast. This lets you shapeshift into a few different forms, with each one having its own uses and abilities. In his normal form, Nevin can run, jump, double jump and attack with his sword. This is your main form that you'll be using, as it lets you get around the many platforming sections quite easily, and it's basically the all-rounder. Then there's the big hulking form, which is slow but powerful, and it has a gun with unlimited ammo. This is great for attacking enemies at a distance, but has limited movement as it's so slow and you can't jump. You'll be using this to start big battles so you can dwindle down numbers before getting in a bit closer. You can also hit people with your gun, which does decent damage. This form also allows you to use the stationary gun turrets that are found in various convenient locations. And finally, you have your dog form thingy. This one is really cool and kind of looks like a dog predator. In this mode you move quickly and you can climb certain surfaces, no matter where they are, so there's times where you can walk on the ceiling. You also have a cloak ability in this form that hides you from enemies or gun turrets for a short time. You can still attack, and the attacks are good but weaker than the other forms, so this is basically your sneaky form. You get all of these things pretty much straight away, and you can switch seamlessly between them, which is really fun to do. There's also other abilities you get, like the Super Sweet Slash. When your special meter is built all the way up, you can press the R3 button to enter a focus mode, where you've got a sort of a rhythm mini game where you need to create a route through a list of enemy icons. If you do it right, you get a really cool cutscene of you chopping them all to bits. In fact, you've got a fair few combos you can do here, and you can earn upgrade points to make yourself more powerful and give yourself new moves. And the enemies come in a lot of varieties that require you to use specific forms and combos. It does get pretty frantic, and it isn't as easy as you'd think. Something that's cool here is that the entire alien planet is made of this Echoplast, which means that the sentient voice thing that guides you around can manipulate the world around you. Though rather than just opening a path to the final boss, he is only limited to opening locked doors or creating bridges or platforms when you've defeated all of the enemies in the area. Graphically, the game looks excellent. I really like the cartoony style that a lot of games from this generation have, and this is a great example of good design, with lots of colour and imagination. The animation is smooth and the controls really complement this. My only real gripe with the game is that it's one of those ones where you can't walk 5 steps without the game stopping to give you an unskippable bit of dialogue or a cutscene, or the 20-second thing showing you where the door that you have to go to is, which is only 5 feet ahead of you anyway. Or when you press a switch, the game will pause to show a flyby of the area showing the door you've just opened, even though it's right next to you. I really hate this in games, and I just want to play the game for more than a minute or two without having to stop. Even a few hours in, it was still doing this. But it's so fun that it didn't really stop me from playing, and in fact I had a really good time with this one. It looks great, plays great, and it's well worth your time.
What would I do without your double mouth? Opening one up and then shooting one out. You've got my head stinging, no kidding, I'm passing out. What's going on with those 3 little dots? I'm hit by your magical shoulder cannon. And I'm so dizzy, don't know what hit me, but I'm not alright. When Beltbuckle Bill was 9 years old, Alien vs Predator was his favourite comic of all time. 40-year-old Beltbuckle Bill still feels the same way, to be fair. A humanoid hunter with ridiculous weapons, seeking out the worthiest of foes to defeat, trying to take on hordes of creatures with acid for blood that are bona fide killing machines. What's not to love? Alien vs Predator Extinction is to love. That would be the cliff note, but I've got content to upload, so I'll give you some more meat on the bone. Alien vs Predator Extinction is a real-time strategy video game developed by Zono and published by Electronic Arts for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox in 2003. You play as Marines, Predators or Aliens. I'm going to have to pause quickly. One of my favourite video games of all time is Command & Conquer, a real-time strategy. So, if I love Alien and Predator and real-time strategies, then I should love this, right? moving on. The game is set on LV-742, a distant planet used by the Predators as a hunting ground for aliens. Human colonists discover the alien hive and must deal with a growing war with the Predators. I wasn't expecting to enjoy this as much as I did. I remember watching a friend play this very briefly on the Xbox when it first came out, and I remember being very unimpressed. Well, I don't know who that guy was, but he clearly wasn't me. A disclaimer, I've only played one campaign for each species, but I'm going to play them all. I'm curious to see just where these levels go. A word to the wise, complete the tutorials. They only take 5 minutes each, but will stop you guessing what to do at various times. Marines first. So you get medics, comms techs, synthetics, gunners, and probably others too. If you lose a medic, you can no longer heal. Lose your comms tech and you can no longer call in backup. Lose your synthetics and you can no longer obtain money from air purifiers. At least I think that's what they're called. It'll make sense when you play it. If you have landing support, a comms tech and money, you can call in a dropship to bring in more medics, synthetics, etc. Whilst campaigns will no doubt differ, they will generally involve the same exploration of the level, uncovering shroud as you go and killing aliens and or predators, and probably rescuing people too. You can upgrade units to make them more powerful, and you need to kill your comrades if they become comatose, so they cannot be impregnated. Predators next. You, of course, have a predator shrine, which you can move, and also call in more predators who drop in individual pods, which is pretty cool. As with Marines, there are different types of predators with differing abilities. Some are good at hand-to-hand combat, others with projectiles. You can stealth the predators until they attack, and heal them using honour points, which you earn by collecting skulls of your kills. You can spend honour points to bring in predator guns and upgrade your predators, including adding different visual modes, making it easier to spot humans, aliens and others. I think I've only managed to unlock the first two. As with Marines, you've got to go around killing humans and aliens, no doubt. I imagine there will be campaigns where you have to defend your shrine too. Finally, aliens, my favourite in all ways. You start with an egg, but which came first, the queen or the egg? Hatch a facehugger, impregnate a living or comatose being, livestock is fine. Out comes a chest burster, which cocoons and then becomes a drone, a warrior or a runner. The second option is to upgrade your eggs, of course, to follow the same life cycle but turn out a Praetorian instead, which are much stronger, and if you don't have a queen, you can choose to cocoon your Praetorian to make it become a queen. Once a queen, you can tear your enemies apart, upgrade your brood, or lay eggs. Brilliant! As facehuggers leave their nest, their health will deplete until it dies, or until you jump on someone's face, so don't rush off too much. The better way is to send out fully grown aliens, kill the beings, then drag them back to the nest and impregnate them in the comfort of home. But adults can also drag eggs to their intended victims, which is so cool. I cannot tell you how much of a kick I got out of this game. It is probably the coolest game I've played for a long time, and building a horde with a queen and a supporting cast of aliens and destroying everything in your way is awesome. The graphics are fine, nothing to write home about, definitely a victim of their time, but they look like Marines, Predators and aliens, so it's all good to me, and you can tell them apart. The controls are surprisingly good. I imagine it'd be better with a mouse, but it works pretty seamlessly with a control pad. The sound effects are awesome. I don't know if they're taken directly from the movies, but they sound pretty spot on, and it's quite exciting listening to aliens shrieking, predators roaring, and pulse rifles rattling away. The only negative for me is it can feel a bit sluggish at times, but with only 21 campaigns to complete, if each one takes 15 minutes, the target time for the first campaigns at least, that's still at least 5 hours of gameplay, likely to be more though, as I spent 2 hours on the first 3 missions alone. And that just about wraps it up for me. Thank you very much for listening. Remember to like and subscribe. And just remember, on Earth, if it bleeds, everyone will hear you scream if you kill it.
If you like hardcore tough as nails shooters, then you might want to try Alien Hominid. This is a 2D shooter like the old Contra games. In it, you play as an alien who's crash landed on Earth. The FBI have stolen your spaceship, so you have to get it back so you can leave this stupid planet. But the FBI doesn't want that, so they send everything they have to stop you, and boy, it is a lot. The levels just need you to get from left to right and kill everyone you see. Most enemies are just FBI agents, and they're easy enough, taking just one hit most of the time. You've got a gun with infinite ammo, and you can hold down the button for a charged attack. You also have grenades. These are limited in supply but pretty powerful, and can even be used to destroy the background buildings to reveal secrets. It doesn't take long for enemies to get tougher though, and take a lot more hits. Thankfully you have other weapons to find, like an ice gun that freezes enemies, a flame shot, acid shot, laser and spread, and these are all very handy to use. If you want to get up close and personal, your alien buddy will chop enemies with a knife if you're close enough, and you can even land on their heads and bite their head off when you're jumping. This will scare away anyone that sees you do it, which is cool. Or you can even be sneaky and burrow into the ground and pull people down to their deaths. But even though you have a lot of ways to kill people, this game is still hard as balls. Enemies are everywhere and there's always so much going on that it's hard to keep track of everything. You really need to be on your toes. The bosses are especially hard, requiring you to learn their patterns, and they've got a ton of patterns to learn. It's really not easy at all. Oh, and did I mention you can only take one hit and you're dead? This is not a game for people that give up easily. But it is just so fun to play. I've actually owned this for years, and back in the day I could actually complete it. Coming back to it now, I've got no idea how I managed that. I really should have gone out more. This game also has a great sense of humour, not taking anything seriously at all. It really helps keep you invested, and you really want to see what's coming up next, because there's so much wacky shit happening, with you fighting all over the world on freeways, streets, forests, Soviet bases and all sorts of cool places. And the whole thing just has a really cool 2D pixel art style, with some really excellent animation and character designs. I love it. The controls here are super responsive, and you really need that, as you definitely won't be beating this one in a hurry. There's no saves, so you've got to play through it all in one go, but you do get unlimited continues. You can play the whole thing in 2-player co-op as well, but this makes it much harder, as player 2 will need to be just as good as you if you want to survive. It's one of those games where you'll be playing the first level over and over, but it'll make you want to come back again and again as you get that little bit further each time. I really love this game, but it is a tough one for tough people. Are you tough enough, punk? Let's stick with 2D for a minute as we take a look at another fighting game. Here is Arcana Heart. This is a 2D one-on-one fighting game featuring an all-female cast of characters, each of which seem to know each other as far as I can tell from the cutscenes. What's more is that there's also magical beings called Arcanas, which grant the user special abilities. So in this fighter, you choose your character from one of the wacky selection of ladies, which include your usual creepy schoolgirl, big-boobed conservative women, witchy-looking ladies, and of course little girls who shouldn't be in a game like this. No matter who you choose though, you have a decent set of attacks and combos, all using the tried and tested Street Fighter control scheme, so if you're familiar with those games you'll be right at home here, putting together some awesome combos and doing some massive special attacks. When you choose your character, you also have to choose your Arcana. This determines the special moves that you get, which is cool. Essentially, it gives each character 2 sets of moves, one set specifically for that character and the other ones for the magic creature you pick. It's fun playing around with different combinations and seeing which ones work best for you. The fights themselves are always quite intense. The computer opponents don't mess around here, but they are a fair challenge, countering a lot of what you do if you don't play strategically. Each character has their own story, which is nice, but I found I skipped most of the dialogue. It's all quite melodramatic and doesn't really add too much, not for me anyway. You also have the arcade mode, which is where you just choose your fighter and fight everyone else in turn without the melodramatic stuff. Either mode is good though, and the fighting is smooth and responsive. There's some really cool stuff you can do here, like chase moves, so if you knock your opponent away, you can press a button to fly after them and smash them in the face before they can recover. You've got the super meter at the bottom of the screen that lets you do super moves that use a few bars, or you can make a regular move more powerful and use up a bar as well. There's actually quite a lot to it, and I'll be honest, I didn't get a lot of what was going on most of the time with the special bar, though it never held me back. Maybe I was just distracted by the bouncy anime boobs. As you can see, the game looks fantastic with some excellent character designs and animation. It plays really well, and some of the super moves are really quite impressive. I did find that a lot of the fighting took place at the edge of the screen, which is a bit annoying as you can sometimes lose track of what's going on, but still, as long as I was winning, I didn't really mind. Overall, this is a really fun fighting game that'd be great to play with friends, if you have any, unlike me.
As
Area 51 is a cool first-person shooter that I never hear anyone talk about. You can probably guess the story. You're a soldier based in Area 51, you know, where all the aliens live. And then that shit starts to hit the fan. One day people start getting a virus that turns them into bloodthirsty, half-human, half-alien monsters, so you and your squad need to fight them off and stop the virus from spreading. This is all done in a first-person way, of course, and your main objectives are to go from point A to point B while shooting everyone you see in the face. Pretty much the whole game takes place in an underground base, so you'll be exploring various laboratories, living quarters, science centres and weapons facilities. You're rarely on your own, with your squad mates being on hand to have conversations with you for exposition and to make sure someone is there to shout at you every 4 seconds if you haven't started walking to the door that they want you to go to. Like most games like this, you appear to be the only competent person in the base, so you'll be in charge of completing any objectives that are given to the squad. If a button needs pushing or a computer needs hacking, you gotta do it. If something needs fixing or a gun turret needs using or an enemy needs killing, you need to do it. Your team will be around there just to shout and shoot at the walls or whatever it is that they do while you explore and complete the objectives. Of course, you will need to do a lot of shooting yourself as well, and you do get a few decent weapons, mostly machine guns and shotguns, but there's also a few alien laser weapons, and later on you get some really cool stuff to blow people to shit with. I do have to say that the actual shooting here is solid and done pretty damn well. As with most games like this, you'll find your favourite weapons and pretty much stick with them the whole way, and you can even dual wield a lot of them as well. And you'll need to, as the enemies are pretty tough, often in pretty high numbers as well. There's lots of mutant people after your blood, and later in the game you'll see a range of different aliens that have high-tech weapons or abilities, and sometimes they're just massive brutes that punch you in the face. A little while into the game you're also infected with the virus, but find that killing stuff actually suppresses it, which is handy. But this also gives you access to different abilities and hand-to-hand combat. You've got various vision modes and some really powerful punches, but it does mean that you have to get up close to enemies, making it easier to take damage yourself. When you've sufficiently suppressed your bloodlust, you can go back to shooting things again. Something that impressed me with the game is just how much is going on all the time. The levels are packed with interactive things, and when you blow stuff up, the rooms really show it, with tables, chairs and paperwork going flying. It all looks quite impressive. And the game in general looks quite impressive, with some excellent graphics and lighting just about everywhere. It is a shame that the colour palette is pretty drab, being the grey and brown era of gaming, but it's still good, and the ragdoll physics on aliens lead to some really funny moments when you send them flying with a particularly well placed headshot. Although I think the game does take itself a little bit too seriously, and the overly chatty radio buddies can be irritating, this is still a really solid and fun game. I'm actually surprised it doesn't get talked about very much, though I guess there were a few good FPS games around at this time. If you haven't already, give this one a go. Back to Japan now for Appleseed EX. This is another game based on an anime or manga or whatever. Here you're part of an elite police force made up of people, robots and women. Your squad has been given a mission to rescue a bunch of civilians that are trapped in a massive block by some evil criminal scum types. The game starts you out in the police headquarters, where you can explore and talk to just about everyone you come across, which didn't help me at all because the whole game is in Japanese. You can also find people that will sell you weapons and items to take on your missions with you. You also have the choice between two characters, a sexy lady woman and a robot. I tried them both, but never seemed to do very well with the robot. He seems to be a bit better with weapons, but I kept dying very quickly when I played as him, so stuck to the lady woman. When you enter a mission, you're usually in a series of smallish rooms or corridors, and there'll be enemies. Defeat the enemies and you'll have access to more rooms. You have to go from room to room, finding the hostages and beating up the bad guys. To do this you have a few options. You've got your melee attacks, which are all done with the square button. There are quite a lot of combos you can do with just one button though, and these change depending on what enemies there are and what directions you press. When you're doing hand to hand, enemies can take forever to beat, but as you're fighting them they'll drop ammo and items. You can collect a load of guns to use, and these are much more powerful, taking out most enemies in just a few shots. So a good tactic is to get a few punches and kicks in to find some ammo from them, and then finish them off with a couple of bullets to the face, as they can be hard to come by. Also, some enemies are immune to certain weapons, and some can only be killed in hand to hand, others with shotguns or rockets. In fact, combat is actually pretty tough in general, thanks to the enemies taking quite a lot of hits. You can lock onto enemies to shoot them, but it's only the closest one, so if an enemy in the distance has a gun, it's really hard to get to them without taking damage. Thankfully, most of the enemies do drop ammo or health, which you'll need, especially as you only get one life before you go back to the title screen. This really sucks, and although you can load your most recent save, it does mean you lose a ton of progress in just a few seconds, as enemies can gang up on you and can kill you pretty quickly when they want to. But there is something really satisfying about playing the game, and it's one that you'll want to keep trying at. It's one of those games where you have to play by its rules and take your time to think about the best way to take out the bad guys. Sure, running in like a madman will work a lot of the time, but you also have to make sure that you keep an eye on your supplies and what weapons you have, and you need to take out certain enemies. Thankfully, the controls are decent, though I would have liked a better block or dodge mechanic, as they're basically non-existent, but they're really needed in a game like this. The graphics are very good, but there is a strange fuzziness to it all. There's like a weird blur filter on it, though this could be my totally real PlayStation that I need to change the settings on. Feel free to let me know. Overall, this is a tough but fun game that doesn't hold your hand. Or maybe it does, just in Japanese. But if you like 3D brawlers and can take a challenge, this is one to try. If Adult Swim cartoons are your thing, then you might like Aqua Teen Hunger Force Zombie Ninja Pro AM, or is it AM? This is an action brawler golf game, and yes, you heard that right. Based on the wacky cartoon, the story goes that you're learning to play golf, when all of a sudden the world goes to shizzle, with aliens appearing, zombies cropping up, and even the local wildlife and fauna turning evil and wanting to kill everyone and everything. Not wanting to let that ruin your game of golf, you carry on playing anyway. So what you have to do is play golf on a number of different holes. You do this in the usual golf game way by pressing a button to time your power and accuracy once you've chosen the club you want to use. You get a map that shows you where the hole is, and you've got to take wind and other obstacles into account if you want to make par. When you're close to the hole, you'll be putting, which is harder than you'd think and definitely takes a bit of practice. But what about the zombies and aliens, I hear you cry? Well, in between each swing, you have to walk to your ball, and this is when a bunch of enemies show up. Using the 3 characters, you have to kill everything that appears, so the coast is clear for you to take your next shot. You can use the golf club to smash enemies in the face, but along the way you'll find more powerful ones, like swords, etc. Alternatively, you can switch to Frylock, who has a laser beam he can shoot to kill enemies from a distance, but he is much slower. Or you can convince Meatwad to turn into various things that will either distract enemies or damage them. There's also a load of power-ups you can find on the golf course to help you, either giving you new weapons or abilities, health, or sometimes just secrets that let you unlock an exclusive episode of the show only available in the game. Every few courses you get to do some racing in a golf buggy. These sections are pretty tough thanks to some twitchy controls, but they do manage to be quite fun. The problem with most of the game though is it is very repetitive even after the first couple of holes. The gameplay just doesn't really change enough. You play golf and then attack waves of enemies that can take too long to kill at times, but it does work fine, and the enemies are mostly reskins, and though they change up every few levels, they rarely do more than just come at you so you can smash them in the face. But the game really has a way of keeping me involved, at least I thought so. Mainly because of the humour and the awesome cutscenes. There's loads of crazy random stuff going on all the time, and I love it. The game is actually really funny, and it made me want to see what was going to happen next. The golfing parts are definitely my favourite bits, but they are tough at times as well. The graphics here are excellent, with a cool cel-shaded look that really suits it, and it still looks excellent to this day. And it looks just like the show. You will get sick of hearing the same 4 or 5 voice samples over and over again, but it's not the end of the world, and if you like golf, racing, or hitting things with a club, this could be the game for you, especially if you're a fan of the show. And finally for today, here is the Japanese exclusive Azumi. Azumi is a 3D brawler based on a manga series in which a female assassin starts out on her life as a cold-blooded killer. From what I can tell, each mission she is given involves her going to various places in feudal Japan and killing prominent people, which lends itself nicely to a video game really. So in the game you are put in a series of medium-sized levels which you can explore freely for the most part, but your aim is always the same. Kill everyone you see, and once you've done that, the boss will appear and then you kill them as well. Azumi has a few different ways to attack. Most of these are with her sword. You have a weak attack, which is a flurry of small strikes, a medium hit, which is a single slash, and a strong attack, which is a jumping slash that can be chained together 3 times for massive damage. What's interesting is that these are all done with the same button, and you have to press the L and R buttons to cycle between what attack you're going to do, which is represented by the coloured orb in the bottom left of the screen. Green for weak, blue for medium, and red for hard. It does take a minute to get used to it, but it's not hard to figure it out, and it works. You also have a couple of other sub-weapons. There's knives you can throw, which aren't knives, they're those ninja dagger thingies, but I don't know what they're called. I'm sure someone in the comments can enlighten me. These target a single enemy and often knock them down, giving you some breathing space. When an enemy is on the ground, you can walk over to them and kill them in a single blow. No honour there. You also have a bomb. You only get 3 of these per level, but they kill most enemies in just 1 hit, and have quite a large radius, so are really handy against groups of enemies. And that's pretty much what you'll be fighting, big groups of enemies, usually 3 or more at a time, and they spawn in constantly, often catching you off guard. For the most part they're not too tough to beat, and the weak combo deals with most of them quite easily. But you do have to be careful, as some enemies have ranged weapons, and some use spears and not swords, so if you run straight at them they'll be able to just hit you before you're close enough to hit them. You don't have a block, which is kind of strange. Instead you've got a dodge roll, which actually works really well. You can dodge most attacks, but be careful, as this is one of those games where you have to finish your animation before you can do anything else, so you can't block or dodge in the middle of a combo, which is annoying if you miss an attack. What I do like though is that if you time the roll just as an enemy strikes you, you do a counter attack, which sees you do a sweet finishing move on the enemy, or if it's a particularly tough enemy, you'll just deal massive damage. The bosses are always just one-on-one fights, and they're not really that much tougher than regular enemies, other than they have a bigger life bar and are better at blocking. So all you have to do is get a combo off, roll away and repeat. I actually beat every boss I fought like this, but I didn't mind. You level up as you play, getting more experience depending on the combos you do, and this increases your life and special bars, which is used for counters. You can also find items in the levels which you can equip that change your stats and attacks. This is a nice idea, and you can change what you have equipped in between levels. The graphics here are actually quite good. This is another budget title, but it all looks clean. The main thing that you'll notice is that there's only a handful of enemy models, so you are fighting the same clones over and over, which does get repetitive, but it's something that most games like this suffer from. This is another game that I'd never heard of, and while it really doesn't do anything new, what it does do is solid enough, and it's a good time if you want some surprisingly cool looking bloody chopping action. So there you go, 10 games for the PlayStation 2 that don't get talked about really at all as far as I'm aware. I'm not saying they're the best games out there, but they are fun and worth a try. What are some other games beginning with the letter A that we could have included? Be sure to let us know in the comments below, as well as any other games that could be included later on in the series. Like I said, there's more than 4,000 games on the system and I need your help to find the ones I should include. Now, all that's left for me to say is thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.